Hello everyone, welcome. It's Rhonda Church Finfrock of Fruitful Life Studio, and it's been a minute since I've been online or doing a live. So today we are going to be doing a scrappy layered heart. It's from my workshop online called Mended Hearts Angel Wings, and I'll talk a little bit about that workshop in a minute. But for now, before I turn the camera down, I wanted to show you an example of what we're going to do today. So if you saw the post, this is the shirt or the flannel that I refashioned. I did cut off the collar because I'm wearing a t-shirt type hoodie underneath. I have refashioned the original pockets so that they are decorative. I have fitted this. You can see it is a fitted piece, a custom fitted, and that seems complicated, but it's actually pretty simple based on my instructions I got from my friend Michelle Paganini. And I will post all of the supplies that I used today, as well as some of the links, for example, to Michelle Paganini's directions for how she fits or custom fits her shirts. So here's some pockets that I added. I think I used about 4 different shirts for this upcycle. On the back is an example of the heart, the scrappy mended heart that we'll be working on today. And so I'm going to take this off so you can get a closer look, and then we'll talk about how I did it. So with this piece, I used a pattern that I hand drew and put in this packet. This is my PDF for my workshop, Mended Hearts Angel Wings. It's an online self-study workshop. There are all kinds of things that I demonstrate in this workshop. First of all, dyeing fabrics, how I dye fabrics, how I over dye fabrics 2 different ways, how I discharge dye or take color, remove dye from fabric, hand painting, raw edge applique, which is what I'm going to do today. On the workshop, I do reverse edge applique. I sew appliques and patches. I do some simple embroidery stitches and hand sewing. I demonstrate free motion sewing for beginners. But today's project is right here, this heart peace sign. So that's what you see here. It's very layered and scrappy, and I'm going to take it step by step. So you'll notice this is a little bit smaller. When I printed this out, I went to the PDF, I opened my PDF, and I went to the page that this was on, which was like page 16. So on my printer, at the printout, I could select page 16, and then I clicked on scale, and I think I made this 122%. So I wanted it a bit larger than this. I also have this page, which is a smaller version. Here you have all kinds of scraps that I collected that matched the different fabrics in this shirt. And then this was cut out of a vintage piece of linen, and it has some really, really cool French knots on it. It's just a really nice accent piece. So to start off, usually I would take my bottom working mat off, but this right here is a surface that I put here so that I could iron on it. It's like a board. It's called Quilter's Cut and Press. They're getting harder to find these days. You can see when I'm stamping or stenciling or painting, I'm just heat setting right on here. So it's, a mess. I also have a Teflon sheet that you can protect your ironing board if you have an ironing board. It will protect your iron from getting adhesives or paints or whatever on. I have this adhesive here. It's called Steam 2. Got my little tray here with things I need. I bought a set of these, but I'm going to be buying more of these because I work in about 3 different places, and this is a magnetic tray. It goes on my ironing board or wherever I'm sewing, and I am constantly dropping my scissors, dropping my seam ripper, dropping my stylus. think that's what that's called. Everything. Yeah, and especially my little pins. Like I have a little one for my little pins and they just don't go anywhere anymore. And now I have to get another one because just as I was getting ready for my live, I have a whole cup full of these little plastic clips that I use when I'm doing my serging. And I dropped the whole cup, so I had to sweep all those up. So I need another tray for my clips. Okay, this Steam Seam, this adhesive is a double-sided adhesive. It has 2 sheets of paper or liner on each side of the adhesive. The adhesive sheet is in the middle. So I am going to trace my pattern. Not sure if you can see this, but it has a grid on it. I don't need the grid today. And when I trace, you'll notice I don't do a lot of things on the computer like my pattern. I hand drew it just because that's how I work. And I go very sketchy. Exact lines aren't important to me. If they are to you, you know, you could clean things up a little bit. Now I'm going to decide how thin or thick I want this heart to be. And I'm cutting out this peace sign in the middle. So with my shirt that I just had on, I cut it to those exact lines. So you can see here, this heart, this peace heart is a little bit thinner, and then I have it backed with a second fabric. So it's collaged on top and then backed with a second fabric. Just with a pencil, an ordinary pencil, I am sketching, but I want to decide, I think I want it just a little bit thicker. So I'm just going to make it just maybe 1/8 of an inch away from that solid line, just because I want my heart just a little bit thicker today. So I see the solid line here, and I'm just making it a little bit wider. I want to make sure that I am using my paper scissors. So these are some fun scissors. They're actually like for stickers and sticky things. They're kind of like Teflon on them. Okay, so I've cut it out. Again, I still have the 2 lining pieces. So now I'm going to keep one of the lining pieces, but I'm peeling back one of them to expose the adhesive. So I can see right now, this is the piece that doesn't have the adhesive, and this is the sticky part. And you can see, I don't know if you can see the shininess to it. You'll notice I'm wearing a nice, beautiful Band-Aid. Yesterday, I was doing some stitching on one of... Once your shape is cut out, set it aside away from the iron. And now it's time to select the fabrics for your layered applique. I've chosen things that match this vintage vest that I thrifted. I've cut off the entire bottom of the vest because I plan on having kind of like an A-line flare out bottom to this vest. Not sure really what I want to do with it, but I'm going to save the bottom. I can use that to create some fun coordinating pockets. This project is the perfect scrap buster. So if you've got lots of bits of this and that, just use them. It's lots of fun to do it randomly, but since my vest already had a colorway or a color path, I decided to go with that and coordinate. The shape of this vest, the way it's cut, fits perfectly with the heart applique that I will apply to the back. Now for the fun. I'm taking my scraps, cutting them into little bits. I'm not really paying much attention to the direction or where I'm going to put it. I try to be a little bit random with this. I steam press each piece, and then I'm going to lay it over across the adhesive heart. I will pat it down. It will be a temporary hold but I can move it around and play around, audition with the pieces as I feel the need to. For me, the piecing of this collage is very meditative. I take my time. I do a lot of repositioning and layering. So I have cut out a lot of the process, but it just depends how you like to work and the time you need to take. Piece I use, I cut off, I steam press, and then I layer it just a bit over the piece that's already adhered, probably about a 1/4 inch overlay. You can always trim it back later before you iron it. Now I'm going to speed this process up so you can see how I addition and move things around and cut things back. Your goal is to cover up all the adhesive areas of your shape. Flip over your collaged applique and make sure you have covered all areas of that adhesive. Now it's time to see if there's any little parts I want to cut back that are too overlapped. I usually try to go for at least a 1/4 inch overlap of the different pieces. And now I'm going to press it from the front and the back. If you're concerned about when you do little applique pieces, if you're concerned about some of the adhesive showing, you can use your Teflon sheet to protect your iron. I'm using my Pelican applique scissors, they're also called duckbill applique scissors, to trim right to the edge of the adhesive. I still have that paper lining on that I will remove when it's time to iron it onto my garment. I like these scissors because they have a super sharp point, and I also use them in other collage applique techniques where I want to make sure I'm not cutting the underlayer fabric when I do my applique cutaways. Before I move on to the next step, I'm peeling back some of the overlaid fabric and trimming that down just a bit. Now I will be using some of my hand-dyed and thrifted laces and trims to embellish and add texture to the top layer of this applique heart. Not only will these trims add more interest and texture, but they will also help to break up those geometric lines that I have formed by just cutting straight lines and collaging. When I hand dye my fabrics and trims and clothing, I gather up a bunch at a time and dye them or over dye them all the same dye color. You can see that process in the same tutorial that you will get the PDF pattern for this heart, Mended Hearts and Angel Wings. Now I'm using an Elmer's washable glue stick to secure down any of the overlapped fabric that isn't adhered already on the fusible web. I'm also using this glue to tack down temporarily any of my laces or trims that I add. This is completely washable and it will not harm your sewing machine. Before I sew this down to my garment, I will put the Teflon sheet over this entire piece again and give it a good hot press. Now I will cut off a piece of this thrifted dress to use as an accent once the heart is complete. I'm pressing this over-dyed shirt or blouse and cutting it up to use as the background or the bottom layer of my collaged heart. After giving the adhesive another press with my iron, I am going to splice the paper using just an ordinary sewing pin. That makes the paper lining much easier for me to peel off. Use my Teflon sheet and iron the applique onto the backing, and then I'm going to cut around, leaving about 1/4 of an inch to 1/3 of an inch border all the way around my shape. I could add another layer of fusible web to iron this background onto the jacket, or to the vest, but I want that edge to be very frayed, so I don't want a permanent adhesive on it. I'm using the glue stick, the washable glue stick, to temporarily hold it while I do the sewing. With all the little pieces I used for this collage, I've decided to use my water-soluble stabilizer. This way, as I'm stitching, it will hold down all the little parts, and when I'm done stitching, all I do is rinse it in warm water and the stabilizer dissolves. Pinning it down in the places that I know are not part of my sewing path. As I sew, I'm going to be holding down the stabilizer and the fabric together and pushing out with my two hands so that it will reduce the puckering that might be caused by the different layers. I'm starting with the outside edge of that applique heart. I won't be doing any stitching on the background fabric, and I'm going to follow the edge of that heart. When I get to a point or a turn, I'm going to make sure my needle is down in the fabric before I pull up on the presser foot and pivot my work. When I get back to the place I started, I'm not going to double stitch and trim it and then start a new line. I'm going to do a continuous line about 1/8 of an inch apart, I'm using a narrow zipper foot because I like how it handles the fabric, and I also like the width. I can use that little zipper foot as a guide for about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch space between my stitching rows. I'm going to continue around until I've filled the space in that outside heart. But I've reached the edge of that inside edge of the heart. Now I'm going to go up the center of the peace sign and continue my rows. For this project, I am using just a straight stitch sewing machine. Actually, it's not just a straight stitch. It's an amazing machine. It's the Juki TL18. I am in love with the company I bought this from. They have the best customer service. Their YouTube videos are very descriptive, and they have a Facebook group where we all help each other with little sewing issues that we might have with our machines or our projects. So I will link or put a link to Juki Junkies in the description. That's where I get all my sewing machines. This is my first Juki. I now have a Juki embroidery machine that I haven't used yet, but you'll see that in future videos. And I also have my eye on a Juki travel machine. Actually, my embroidery machine is a Janome, but I got it from Juki Junkies. So again, visit their site and see what they have to offer you. I have sped up the video, but in real time, it's very meditative to just sit and concentrate and relax and fill in all the spaces with this rows of stitching. Now I'm going to tear away the stabilizer, and whatever's left will be rinsed away in warm water. Now I'm snipping around the edges just a little bit more to add more distressing so that this outside edge frays. Now to add a coordinating accent. This really ties in the front of the vest and the black and white colors. So I have attached the flower and the yo-yo with the washable glue stick, as well as pin it down in a few spots just to get me started. So now I'm just using a straight stitch, going in a circle to sew on this yo-yo. Back stitch. Now I'm going to come over here and go on the outside of this little flower applique and sew it on. If I were doing free motion, I could just move it around like this, but this project is a beginner project, and I am using only straight stitch from my Juki TL18. For a little accent on this heart, I'm going to be appliquing this phrase, "All you need is love." It's from one of my strips that I have available. All you need is love and the beach, but sometimes I don't want the whole phrase, so I cut them up and use them as is. I'm keeping this selvage on here. That's the original selvage of the fabric because it has a really cool fray there already. And now I'm just going to cut, leave a little bit of a border, and then I will applique it onto the heart. I sewed a couple rows of stitching around this phrase, and then now I'm snipping or clipping the ends so that it frays and doesn't have a lot of tangly threads. Thank you for joining me today. Check out the supply list in the description. This originally was my Facebook Live over 1 hour and 15 minutes, and I've edited, sped the video up, and reduced it down for you to save you time. But if you'd like to see the full version, head on over to my Facebook page, Fruitful Life Studio. Thanks for watching. I love you much and have a wonderful week. Stay safe. Hope everybody enjoyed this, and see you next time. Bye-bye.